can see, we've got the length we need, and we're nice and thin. The width here is just a little bit bigger than my 52-100, so that's good. We'll want to grind off the edges because there's some little broken spots. But now I need 2 bars that length. We'll start the other bar here in a second. So now I'm going to hot cut the length off that I need for my san-mai. Got a mark right here. That's bad. You don't want to do that. The idea is to stop before it breaks off. Whoops. Alright, so here's our first bar. As you can see, it's a little bit over 1/8 of an inch thick. It's pretty much the length of our 52-100 bar. See there? And just a little bit bigger, because you'll see there's some broken edges right here. We're going to grind those off. But first I need to get this bar nice and straight, and then I can grind it clean and it'll be ready to weld to the 52-100. Alright, so we have our 2 bars of steel. This is one of them. This is the wrought iron that are thinned down and about the same size as our 52-100, as you can see here. You know, about the same length. They're a little bit wider because I want to grind off the edges and waste that. I got the other one in the forge right now. What we need to do now is go back and with my hand hammer smooth that up and get it nice and clean so that we can match it up to the 52-100. This is my favorite hammer. This is a 4-pound hammer. It's a Swedish pattern. I really like this hammer. Okay, so here's why we're tapering the 52-100. If I have my wrought iron in a square like that, and my 52-100 in a square like that, and my other wrought iron like that, when I go to when I go to thin this out, hitting here with end blows, what's going to happen is the 52-100 doesn't move as nicely and smoothly as the wrought iron. The wrought iron's a lot softer. So what's going to happen is this wrought iron is going to move out more than the 52-100, and we'll end up encasing the 52-100. We don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll take my wrought iron, and I've got my 52-100 at a taper like this. And then my wrought iron, so that when I go to thin this down, hitting here on the edges, on the sides, what I'm really doing is forcing that 52-100 out of the sandwich. It's like biting into a hamburger that's too big with too much mayonnaise and ketchup on it. The meat slides out. I kind of want that to happen with this 52-100, so that when I end up with my finished blade, like this, I've got wrought iron on both sides of a 52-100 sandwich, thus the san-mai. That's important. Alright, so what I've done is I've taken my wrought iron and ground clean faces on it, or basically clean, for the to get them ready to weld up to the 52-100. And now I'm going to grind the wedge shape on my 52-100 so that we can move forward. And lung protection. Uh-oh. Okay, now if you look real close, you can see how that's just a little bit tapered. Not much, it's a subtle thing. That's going to help a lot with the steel movement when I'm forging up my san-mai. So, here we have our stack. What we're going to do now is put this in the vise, and I'm going to tack weld it. And then you see how this is, the wrought iron is overhanging the 52-100. I'm going to come back and grind off those edges because I want everything nice and flush and clean for the actual forge welding part. So let's get this set up in our vise over here. Alright, so I have these pieces of wrought iron just roughly welded, but as you can see they're all unevenly shaped. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the grinder and grind that all flush and clean so that everything lines up before I go to welding it in the forge. See how it's all flush and clean? Now I'm going to go back. See how I got the crack there? I'm going to squeeze that tight in my vise. And I'll finish welding on there. Just hold everything together. Flip over to the other side. Alright. See how that's all flush and clean? Now I'm going to go back. See how I've got the crack there? I'm going to squeeze that tight in my vise and put my finished weld bead on there just to hold everything together to weld it. Flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. Now, remember that we made the end, or the 52-100, into kind of a triangle shape. I want this side, the fat side of the 52-100, to end up being the edge. But once I get this hot, I'm not going to be able to tell which side is which. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind a chamfer on that side right there, just as a witness mark so that I can always know this is the edge side. Is our san-mai stack ready to stick into the forge, and once it starts to get some color on it, we'll start fluxing it. So